Hey, it's Juck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It's showtime, and welcome into Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Appreciate you so much for joining us. As always, here again on a Monday, as we are here Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m., talking about the Buckeyes, talking college football, taking your comments in the chat. And we've had pretty much nothing but celebrations, victory Mondays, so to speak, since we started this program. The longest winning streak in the country now belongs to the team that just beat the Buckeyes on Saturday night at Lucas Oil. 13-10, and when you look at the analytics, this puppy was close. In fact, Ohio State may be more consistently efficient throughout that game. And when we look at this game, Ohio State coming off the huge win in the rivalry, an emotional win. I said last week on this show that I don't think there could be a better suited crew. The crew on that defense in particular, so mature that win was not going to carry over. It wasn't going to mess with their prep. It wasn't going to mess with their execution. And I don't think it did, except for a few, maybe, but most like the standout performances all over the field by the Buckeyes, but they're going to get overshadowed because they lost. But in large part, a really good game by the Bucks. Monday morning quarterbacking is always, Monday evening quarterbacking, as it were, is always with the benefit of hindsight, but we're going to do it anyway. Ryan Day has now had two press conferences since that game, immediately following the game, and then when the college football playoffs were announced on Sunday. He hadn't slept at that point. That was at noon yesterday, he said. So he's on top of things. I think there were some coaching decisions in that game that left a lot to be desired, and we're going to talk about those with our main man, Tony Gerdeman, as Tony joins us again. Tony, we haven't talked since Michigan. We haven't talked about the signing day, nothing. Appreciate you coming on with me again.
You know, and as you're talking about the loss to Indiana and how the Michigan win probably didn't impact it in a great way, think of all the stuff that we haven't talked about yet. That was exactly what Ryan Day was dealing with all week long before it, when you should be preparing for the Big Ten championship game. You're on the phone with agents. You're on the phone with player agents, coaching agents, all of these different things, and Indiana's not. So I think that was something that maybe we didn't factor in enough. But even still, you make two or three more plays and you win, and all of those factors aren't as big as they look in hindsight.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I mean, like, look, no excuses. I'm so impressed by Indiana, but. Yes, it's a lot of stuff that Ohio State was going through that they weren't. But I feel like bringing that up makes me sound like a sore sport, which I'm not. This is all on Indiana. In fact, Tone, I was so dismissive of Indiana. I was still skeptical after watching them do what they did at Oregon, knowing how talented that roster is, even hearing Dan Lanning say that they outcoached us. And that's a staff I really respect. And going into this Ohio State game, like, I just did not believe that – like something that just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't square with me as someone who has like immersed myself into recruiting for the last 20 years of my life. It's hard to square it. And even when we look at the portal players that they've got, like the only portal player that I'd ever heard of that they've got is Mendoza. Like that's the only guy. Everybody else they got except for Zen Mahalski, maybe Coogan from Notre Dame. But like, it's not like they brought in a bunch of big time portal guys either. And the fact that these guys would be able to come and play head up with Ohio State for an entire game, I didn't believe it was possible. And, you know, I learned the hard way. I ran my mouth. Tony, these guys, I don't know how they do it, but this group of misfits, as Mendoza calls them, they can play with anybody in the country. And they are, you know, currently the number 2 odds-on favorite still to win the national championship. The number 1 seed heading to the playoff. It's an amazing story. It is.
Well, we've seen a lot of bad college football this year where teams make mistakes and they're not disciplined. when you watch Indiana play, you see a very well coached team on all sides of the ball. So they make you earn it, and they do have talent. When doing all of our Buckeye Weekly podcast leading up to this game, telling people that this will be by far the best group of receivers that Ohio State will face, that played out. And this was, and I said it on a Buckeye Weekly podcast that we recorded today in a rewatch of the game. Indiana's deeper at receiver than Ohio State is now, in terms of 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, 1 versus 2. Yep. 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2. You'll take Ohio State, but below that, Charlie Becker wasn't playing much before the midpoint of the season. And if he still wasn't playing much in this game, Ohio State wins this one pretty comfortably, 10-6. I don't know, but he was, he's their third receiver, fourth receiver, and he was good enough to be their number 1 receiver in this game. So, that's impossible to ignore. They've done a good job. They upgraded at quarterback. That's hard for schools to do, through the portal. Generally, you do that through recruiting and just building your quarterback. Like Julian Sayin will be better next year because they'll develop. So Ohio State will be better at quarterback next year. But I still want to see what Indiana looks like when the James Madison guys are gone and Fernando Mendoza are gone, because I'm still curious, even though what they've done these last 2 years have been tremendous, but it's just below the point of unbelievable. So it's just hovering right there with unbelievable. So if it's unbelievable, why would I believe that it would continue? And then it's almost like, well, how many times do you want to be punched in the face before you really punched in the face? So
I'm with you, man, because I look at the roster next year and I'm like, all right, man, they're losing a bunch of these guys. How do you replace them? You did walk in. They knew the culture. They knew the coach, those JMU dudes. And a lot of those guys are some of the big dogs there. In the recruiting class. It's not, they haven't been great recruiting classes. Pretty good, better than Indiana usually does. And they'll continue to get better, but it feels like it's going to take either a really big time portal class from them or, another 3 or 4 years to kind of try to get back to where they're at now. That's the way I read it. But no doubt, coming off that huge emotional win that Ohio State put everything into, while Indiana, I think they had a bye week before Purdue and they beat Purdue by 53. So I am going to guess eyes were on Ohio State for a while when it came to Indiana. That's the measuring stick that was setting up to be the biggest game in school history. So without a doubt, advantage Indiana coming in. That's for sure. But when we look at these Buckeyes, when we look at the players, I really feel like everybody played a damn good game, at least as far as, the offensive line, obviously, and we'll get to them. But as far as the coaching goes and your directives, I feel like everybody executed the game plan pretty damn well. It's the coaching, it's the game plan itself that I took some issue with some of the decisions. But all in all, I think it was a really good performance by the Buckeyes. And when you look at the analytics, it's right there. It feels like it was a coin flip game. And, sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. The Bucks lost. And I think that moving forward, it might not be so bad that they did.
No, I asked Ryan Day on Monday because he mentioned after the game and then again on Monday how this team was a pissed off team. And so it's like, well, how far can anger take you? And what he said was, well, it immediately exposes your scars and your scabs, and you see where you've fallen short. If you win, you can kind of excuse it. Think back to a few years back where Luke Fickell was the defensive coordinator. They gave up 40 points in the game, and you ask him about it, and his answer is, "Did we win? Did we win?" And then they go out and get blown out the next week. Give up a bunch of points the next week. So, did we win? Did we win? That's
ridiculous.
Something. Yeah. Right. And so when you lose, then it forces you to take a harder look at things. And, you look at the personnel groupings, you look at how you're doing in the red zone. Why are you failing in the red zone? And you look at look at the personnel groupings and how effective were they? How efficient were they? What were their success rates? And you have to look at all of that, and you have to re-examine, this stuff hasn't worked. Why isn't it working? Is it just because of personnel and clogging the entire playing field with a massive humanity, or just whatever it is, you lose and it causes you to wake up a little, I think, rather than the routine has been working fantastically for Ohio State. I just think when you go through the Big Ten like this, you start to maybe just you begin to think maybe your flaws aren't so flawed. And then when you
Mhm.
lose and you score 10 points in the game, you're like, well, okay, if Indiana can do this, and no shade at Indiana, if Indiana can do this, how many other teams in the playoffs that you could be facing could do this? And when you look at the road that Ohio State's probably going to play, it's all of them.
It's a tough road. It's a tough road. I mean, look, last year you had 4 games, but this one just as tough when we look at the potential competition here with A&M and Miami, and then most likely Georgia, and then Indiana or Oregon or Texas Tech in the final. Should you get that far? I mean, it's a tough road. I do think it's a real shame that this defensive performance is going to get totally just not even remembered, like giving up 13 points to this offense. And again, they moved the ball. They 340 yards of total offense Indiana had, but to be able to hold them to 13 points and some of the individual performances we saw, Caden Curry, just when this guy gets heated up, it's just something special, man. It's like, here he comes. It's one of those games, and he just boom, 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 boom. He keeps on coming. Granted, he was going against Zen Mihalski for some of those, and that's, look, I was surprised that Indiana fans were talking all that smack to me when they knew that Zen Mihalski was lining up across from Caden Curry. But hey, they got it. They got it. But these performances aren't going to be remembered. Kenyatta was amazing. Sonny was amazing. Caleb was great. He was a leader. He was getting in people's faces. That performance is going to get washed over, and giving up 13 points to them. And a lot of people compared this to the 13-10 game last year. This was 13 points against a really great offense, maybe the best offense in college football by most of the metrics. That was against a trash offense. Like, this was a great defensive performance.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at this, what Ohio State, this defense did, and you project that out, how many teams are going to score 20 against them? And then if the thing becomes, if you score 24 points, you may win it all. And so you only need to score four times in your 10 or 11 possessions. But what impressed me about Indiana was how aggressive they were. They, in terms of throwing the ball downfield, where they had time to throw and they took advantage of it and weren't concerned about the coverage, and they weren't trying to throw away from anybody. They went after Lorenzo Styles. They went after Jermaine Matthews. And I think the thing that I continue to take away from this, they hit Jermaine Matthews on the touchdown. Coverage is right there. Even the last play, the deep shot to Becker to, J.J. Smith, it basically, Matthews is punching at the ball as Becker is going to the ground. So even, he gets beat, but he's still there close enough to punch at the ball. Lorenzo Styles gave up his deep catch or whatever, and his arm is caught by the receiver. The coverage is there. So credit Indiana with making some incredible plays.
Great plays.
They made the plays that needed to be made to get them basically into field goal range and to keep drives alive. And the one thing Ohio State did not do in this game was make plays to keep drives alive.
No doubt. 33%, maybe a little less on third and fourth down. Indiana was 50%, I think 7 for 14, which is, if you just look at that stat right there, you can probably tell who won the game. My one gripe on defense is Arvell has kind of been deactivated. Just 3 rushes in true pass sets. And when we talk about Mendoza having time, I don't feel like we've really felt Arvell in the back half of the year. And granted, we had games that didn't do us any favors. But against Michigan and against these guys, it's just like, I don't, I was thinking earlier, Tom, like this may be, and we've had been fortunate enough to see a lot of top 10 draft picks come through Ohio State. If we go and end up getting eliminated in round 1 and we don't see a big game out of Arvell, he might be the shortest amount of time we've ever had with a guy living at the top that ever got drafted that high. Really just like 6 games of this just enigma, and then never saw him again. And that was it. I feel like you're missing the boat, not using him to rush the passer. That's one for you, Tone. I see you thinking.
Well, Yeah, the only guy that would be is Terry Glenn, but that's an entire season. This would just be like a 4-game stretch. But
Yeah.
and I'm with you. It's like, where is he? And I'm trying to watch him at times, and it feels like he's just setting the edge, maybe, and then and doing his job. I
Mhm.
wonder if remember when Kenyatta Jackson asked to rush the passer more,
Yes.
if that means that somebody else has to watch the door, and that's kind of what Arvel Reese is doing. But I did see one of these analytical draft nicks talk about how like Arvel has had maybe like 3 pressures since November 1st, and he's not doing any less pass rushing, but it feels to me like he is. You just mentioned 3 true three pass
Yeah.
rushes in true passing down. So
Mhm.
that's to me not nearly as much as he used to be doing,
For sure.
and you don't feel him as much. So clearly, I don't think he's being asked to do as much. We used to see him. Did we? We didn't really even see him much at. How much did we see him at linebacker against Indiana? Because he's on the edge quite a bit. And Sonny did fantastic cleaning up everything, and they just kept running right to him, and he just kept tackling them. But we did see Arvel spying, and then Mendoza able to get rid of the ball before he got tackled. I think that's one of the differences between him and Arch Manning or any of the other quarterbacks, Demond Williams.
Mhm.
Mendoza's just got good timing and knows, like, you know what, maybe I should just throw the ball away, where other guys are, for some reason, you know what, I'll just get captured, that sort of thing. And so I am wondering if at some point you do unleash him a bit more, because the way we saw him just toss left tackles and right tackles around, or all of these different things that he's doing, I just wonder if maybe they're having him do less because this is what we need you to do right now. And 13 points.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Right? You can't argue with that. It's true. But there's also like the fun factor. Can I please see this guy a little more? All right, Julian Sayin in a huge spot, Tone. Big Ten championship on the line. Billed as for the Heisman Trophy. He was under a lot of pressure, man. 5 sacks, 12 pressures. I thought he got pretty shook, maybe middle of the second and partially through the third quarter, but he got it together. It looked like he was holding the ball quite a bit. I haven't seen the all 22. You were there. Was this the best secondary they've played all year? Were these guys was there any separation going on? Because it looked like they must have had the clamps on him. He wasn't letting it go like quite a bit.
I tend to think he didn't like what he was seeing or wasn't sure what he was seeing, and so that slows things down. That helps coverage, that helps the pass rush, and then at some point, I'm wondering, does he start to look at the rush as well, because he knows there's not as much time as he had hoped for, and they did draw up some big, long developing plays. I know one of them he got sacked on. It was going to go to Jeremiah. There's double coverage on Jeremiah, so that wasn't going to work. And so, who is the secondary receiver there? Doesn't matter because you got sacked. But there was a lot of coverage, and you see times where it's just 4 men rushing and then 7 dropping back. And those linebackers, I watched 4 games, and they're very, very good. And the one thing that's strange about them is they like to play 3 linebackers in coverage, in terms of like when it's a 3rd and long, not super long, but if it's a passing down, they'll keep their 3 linebackers out there, and they'll still play 4 linemen or 3 linemen, and they won't bring in another defensive back unless they take a defensive lineman off the field at times. Now, if it's a long distance, they'll bring in their nickel, but those 3 linebackers are good in coverage, they're good in pass rush, and they tackle. And you saw all of these things. And that first interception was like a 3rd and long-ish, but the 3 linebackers were on the field. Safety reads it, jumps the route, and then you get that interception. But really impressed overall with the linebackers. And the secondary, I thought they should have gone after. They went after Pons effectively, because he's their boundary safety or the boundary corner. And Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith had his way a little bit with them. The one time they threw into the end zone to him with Pons, Sayin just like threw it 40 yards in the air. And it's like, why not throw a jump ball there when you've got a 6'3" guy against a 5'9" guy? Isn't this what? That's why you have him one-on-one right there, giving him opportunity. And of their, I think, 13 red zone snaps in this game, they threw to Jeremiah threw in his direction twice. That one, and then the one where
Well, we're going to get
there's
to
a
the other
little
one. We're going to get to those
rollout.
decisions.
Yeah.
um,
So
yeah. So when I look at Julian in his progression, I think he's probably learned so much just in the Michigan game and in the Indiana game. Obviously, he comes out, throws the quick pick again, which was like, damn it. Yeah. You'd want him to learn from that. But I feel like
Mhm.
the guy just learns so quick, and getting able, being able to play these two difficult games before the playoffs gives me a lot of confidence. What I hated was no fault of Ohio State's, but the way this Big Ten schedule shaped up, having those 5 games before Michigan where you're a 20 to 30 point favorite in every single one. I think it was such a lull in not just his, opportunity to
Mhm.
develop and get good competition, but really everybody's opportunity to get pushed. The starters had not been pushed for 6 weeks before the Michigan game at all. And I just hate the way that's set up for them. And I feel like there's still some of that kind of hanging over. But it really seems to me like Julian, towards the end of the game, those last 2 drives, it's like, all right, man, this dude's getting it. The next time he comes out in a situation like this, it's going to be even better. And I'm excited for it for sure. So one thing I would like to see, Tony, when we get to games like that, and you got a quarterback who is like in a gotta have a game, picking up third downs here and there with his legs. And I feel like Ryan Day, we've heard him, and we heard him after the Michigan game say that was his favorite play when Julian
Mhm.
rushed and scrambled and got that first down. And in this game, I thought there was a few opportunities to maybe do that, and he just is tentative to do that. I wish that he would. I don't know if it's something that maybe he's going to grow into, but it feels like he's thinking about it at times, and he won't, and he won't, and he won't. And then he ends up, am I going to throw? Am I going to, and then just kind of running out for 2 yards. And it's like, if he'd committed, he could have gotten 6 or 7. And sometimes it works out. He'll hold on to it and
Mhm.
something will come open and he'll get it. And that's great. But more often than not, I'd love to see him just pop up and grab that 6 or 7, because that's just demoralizing to a defense. And I love it when you got that mixed in.
Well, I wonder if he would do it more if he didn't have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and he's just, waiting for one of them to come back or free up as he's on his scramble. And a lot of guys, it's like 1, 2, go. Ohio State, it's not like that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go, that sort of thing. And so I understand him wanting to find those guys. He's athletic enough to get some yards, but it is like it's almost like it's so late in the progression that the defense knows nobody's open, so they can meet him to the point. They can beat him to the edge, or wherever he's going. There's going to be somebody there because you're not caught off guard because the clock has ticked, the buzzer has gone off. He needs to go and do something. Whereas if the clock is still going, you're not sure where he's going. So yeah, I think it's just, as Ryan Day will say, if you ask him about it, he's like, that's the art of playing quarterback. And it's when you know when to make the right decision. And it's hard to know that for sure 13 games into your playing career, essentially.
Right. Right. Something I really hope that he gets after a little bit more time and experience, because he is a good enough athlete to make those little 6,
Mhm.
7 yard runs happen. Uh, Speaking about that clock going off, when we talk about that offensive line and looking back at a couple of those games in that 5-game stretch, you had Wisconsin and you had Purdue, 2 teams that can't compete with Ohio State at all. The offensive line in those 2 games, the first one was like, all right, maybe it's just a one-off. They let 11 pressures with Wisconsin, and the defense stunted, twisted a lot, and it was clear like, okay, these guys need to work on this. Purdue, same deal, 11 pressures again. It's like, whoa, we got a serious problem. Now we're in the back half of the season against guys that, Ohio State should be much more talented than, and you shouldn't be seeing this. And Phil Daniels, I think against Wisconsin, gave up 6 pressures. It was just a really bad deal. Then they get much better against Rutgers and UCLA. So you're feeling pretty confident going into Michigan, and it's a flawless performance. They were amazing. The best game they've played all year, which had me feeling very confident heading into the Indiana game. In the performance against Indiana, they clearly knew the blueprint. The blueprint is get lateral movement, slant, twist, stunt, and these guys can't handle it, and they couldn't handle it at all. It was abysmal.
I have nothing else to say. You've said it all. And that's other teams are going to learn from this, just as Indiana did. And that's what they do anyway. So you would think that there would have been a better setup for dealing with that. But also you'd have thought that with the other games as well, where they struggled and they knew what they're going to face. And now they've got 3 weeks to figure it out, or else it's going to be another struggle. And fortunately for Ohio State, they've got a defense that's like, we can hold them to 13 points. The rest is up to you. I mean, we can give you even the Ohio State touchdown drive, which started at the 25, thanks to the interception from Davis and Igbinosun, featured a personal foul on the defense and an offsides on the defense, or who knows what goes on there. So that offensive line needs to really, really, really pick it up and just help this offense be what it can be, not what it has to be. Let it be more than what it has to be, because what it can be, you would think, is very, very good given the talent. What it has to be is several marks below that. And so you should be able to find yourself in this sweet spot of has to be, could be, good enough to be. But if you don't have time to throw, if the defensive line is just doing their thing that Ohio State can't handle, I don't know, do you do some more quick stuff so that you're not even trusting the offensive line more than you need to? But the quick stuff from Ohio State on Saturday wasn't really doing anything. You're seeing Jeremiah Smith with 2 passes behind the line of scrimmage. One went for -3, and one went for maybe like -5.
Yeah, they were
so
all
those
over
not working either. So have fun.
Yeah, it's just like flashing back to the Indiana-Oregon game, and it's like, this is exactly what Indiana did to Oregon. And, I'm just like, there's no way they're going to do that to Ohio State. They know it's coming. There's no way. And it's just like their kryptonite has been exposed. You get this stuff going on them, lateral movement, and particularly the right-hand side, but not just them. Luke didn't have a good game. Cerevel didn't have a great game. Really, the best performance was Gabe coming in off the bench. Van Sickle did great. And when I look at Van Sickle doing great, when we look at Ian Moore, who played against Purdue really good, or Purdue or Wisconsin, one of the two, him and Phil flip-flop one of those games. Ian was great. Van Sickle clearly can handle that type of stuff better than Tegra. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Tegra can do. He can run block. He can pass block. It's whenever it gets going and there's any kind of chaos, it's curtains, man. It's over. I'm curious as to how they're going to handle this moving forward with the Tegra situation. It feels like it's like almost, if a defense is going to play you like that, and you got Gabe sitting there at this point now, I mean, it feels like you got to kind of go with him, I would think, right off the rip. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it will be decided in practice, and the fact that it still has not been, or has been decided in practice because Tegra keeps starting, which lends you to think that, well, they're not going to put the worst guy out there, but then you see Gabe comes in and he does very, very well. So you wonder what's going on during practice, but he's going to have 2-3 weeks to win the job. Gabe will, or hold a job, because it sure seemed twice now where Gabe Van Sickle at the half or early in the third, it's just like, go do this is your job now for the rest of the game. And we'll see. And then what happens when they get to know who they're playing, right? And then you've got the scout team doing that, whatever the opponent is doing, and it's not going well for a particular guy, then it's going better for Tegra than it is for Gabe Van Sickle based on what they're seeing from what that defensive line will do. Although, how often is an offensive lineman struggling with the scout team defensive line? And if they are, why are they starting? So you assume he's not struggling with that. And then, of course, he's going to struggle against, Caden McDonald or, Taiwan Malone. And it's like, well, not of course. Or, Kenyatta Jackson playing inside technique, things like that. Sure, you're going to struggle against some of those guys, and that all gets baked in. But, this isn't this part of the your scabs have been exposed, and now you've got to re-examine everything you're doing.
Well, it is, but this particular scab, I think, has been exposed for a good 6, 7, 8 weeks. But so has another scab, Tone. And it's one that you and I think, were lamenting 10 weeks ago, and it is the tight end bonanza. 57 total snaps offensively for the Buckeyes, 105 of those snaps by tight ends, just 94 by Jeremiah and Carnell combined. That is not a ratio for success, in my opinion. As you were stating, Indiana, a team that prefers to run with 3 linebackers. So you're just kind of playing into their hands, even if they wanted to, like rotate one of them out. This was maybe after 4 or 5 games, we started seeing them say, okay, let's back off of this. It's not quite giving us the advantage maybe we thought that it might give us. We give up, we throw our hands up, we'll use it sparingly. And in this game, we see 1 touchdown, and the touchdown they scored in this game was with both wide receivers on the field, went to Carnell. Why do you think, and what do you think they saw in this matchup that made them think that going back to this heavy usage of the tight ends was the deal here?
I don't know, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask Ryan Day after the game. Is like, what? But you have to, the way you have to ask these questions are, you can't do, Ryan, it seems like, or Ryan, it feels like. You have to have the information,
right?
And it can't be because if it seems or it feels, that's an emotional question. I'm not asking an emotional question, but it's like, what did you think you were going to get out of the heavy personnel against Indiana's defense? And the answer would have been, well, we expected the plays to work. And that's the kind of answer that you're probably going to get after the game. But yeah, I thought they had learned their lesson with that. And then you go, and I think they had, I was charting the red zone drives, and they had 13 plays and 4 red zone trips. And they were in 11 personnel once. And they were in 12 personnel 4 times, 13 personnel 7 times, 14 personnel 1 time. And the success rate of those plays, they were successful on 2 of their 4 plays in 12 personnel and 2 of their 7 plays in 13 personnel. So of those 13 snaps, they had a success rate of 4 of 13. And the success rate means just, maybe this is a 2-yard rush on with 3 to go on second down. So, and then as I mentioned earlier, they threw to Jeremiah Smith just twice in those 13 snaps, both with, single coverage. And I don't understand it either, other than they feel that those plays are going to work. But, you said it, like with Indiana playing 3 linebackers, you're playing into what they want to do. And it's the same thing with when you take Jeremiah Smith off the field, you take Carnell Tate off the field. The defense is happy when you do that.
Absolutely.
So this was a lot of Ohio State doing what the Indiana defense was happy they would do. And that was a week of game planning to get that done.
Yeah. I got a theory, Tony. I just developed it this morning, but I think I might be onto something. So here's my theory. I think that Keenan Bailey, number one, I love him. I think he's fantastic. I think he's so good, and he has so much respect now. He's earned so much respect that him in the tight end room wanting to play his guys has been, all right, let's roll with Keenan's plan. Let's play Keenan's guys. I think that's what's going on here, Tone. I think that's what's the deal. He's just got so much respect. He's in those meetings. And if it was a mousy meal tight ends coach, we wouldn't be seeing any of this. None of it.
Well, I said it before the season that the Ohio State tight end room is deeper than the Ohio State wide receiver room. And I still believe that. But that doesn't mean you've got to play all of the tight ends. They don't play all of the wide receivers.
No.
They play 3 of them. And you could play just 3 tight ends, and you don't have to play them all at the same time. But yeah, ton of respect for Keenan Bailey, of course, and he has a lot of say in the offense as well. If your preferred thing is not working, would you keep touting it, or would you start to like drift off into the background? Like, why don't we see what somebody else wants to do?
I don't know. Tony came off the field. We heard him in the tunnel last week at Michigan, and he was yelling up to Tyler Bowen, Tebow, but that 14 personnel. And I'm like, what did 14 personnel do for you today, buddy? I don't know what you're talking about. But he was pretty happy about it. But no doubt, some puzzling decisions with the tight ends, some puzzling decisions with the play calling, clock management that I want to go over with you. And I want to start with, obviously, we had the two scoreless possessions, one in the third, one in the fourth quarter. And I want to start with the first one that took place with the Buckeyes down 13-10. They take over with roughly 7 minutes left in the third. And on this drive, they drive down and they're kind of cooking. They got things moving and they look like they're going to go take the lead. They get down to the 14-yard line and they hit Will Kazmarek for like 7 yards, run from Bo Jackson. And now it's 3rd and 1. And this play call here that you mentioned, you roll Julian to the left, his offside. And I'm not like, I know some people hate cutting off half the field, and I'm with you for the most part, but I actually think Julian has a real knack at excelling rolling to his right, waiting for one of those wide receivers and a good connection with them to pop open. And we've actually seen it with Max Clare. We've seen it with Bryson. Even the other guys, we've seen him just be really wicked with that particular roll over the right. But rolling him to the left, the only option's JJ. The only option is run or JJ. I believe it was a short side of the field as well. And on a 3rd and 1, to me, that just doesn't seem like it just seems poor. And I know it's such low hanging fruit for fans to say play calling sucked, but situationally, this one actually did feel like it sucked. And you follow that up with a 4th and 1 where you sneak Julian after he just didn't get it at Michigan. And you can say, well, he slipped at Michigan because of the snow. I actually don't think that was it. I think he was leaning too far forward and he would have slipped on turf because the top fell out from him and moved forward. But you line him up under center. So we know the sneak's coming. He hasn't lined up under center all game. So we know it's coming, and it's a defense that you have not gotten any push against at all. And Ryan Day asked Julian after the game, how many have we failed on? Right? Well, 2. Yeah. Against 2 very stout fronts. You couldn't get it. And you've got a 190-pound soaking wet quarterback who's not, doesn't got a big, powerful lower half. And you also got a running back in Bo Jackson who has been playing his most physical game of the year. I mean, every single hit, he's getting an extra 2, 3, 4 yards. And you've never really used him much in this situation at all year, which I'll never understand. But it seems to me when he's running with that kind of momentum, that's probably your better play. Hindsight's 2020. I just think that you got 2, 1, a horrible concept. 2, I just don't like the call. And I hope that this is not, I don't want to see the sneak again. If you do, and I'm not a fan of bringing in another quarterback, but like you've got Lincoln, you work this package in, just like all this stuff. This is all the stuff I hope is the warts and the scabs that they work on over these next couple of weeks.
It's interesting because I think between like the 20s, they probably get 3 yards per quarterback sneak that they've had this year, where the pile moves, but not down there. And, I know everybody wants to see the ball thrown to Jeremiah down in the red zone, but then when it's that one that people are like, well, no, not like that. I want the touchdown play. Do the touchdown one, and so you're talking about Jeremiah initially runs, goes right and then cuts left, and great coverage and
great coverage.
Maybe some holding. The refs didn't miss any calls. We don't need to. maybe that's the second hour of the show, but I'm with you. I think everybody in the press box was like, that's the 3rd down call. But you do that because it's like, well, if it works, it works. But we'll still pick it up on 4th down. And then of course, it doesn't. And then there's like a replay, and then I guess Fox goes to commercial while all of this is going on, and then they come
Yeah.
back and then good news, Indiana has the ball, and
Hey, it got overturned. Yeah, that's all we saw.
and we're trying to watch reviews, and it's like, well, here's a Dove commercial, and here's a Papa John's commercial, and they're showing some replays, and it's up on the screen in the stadium. It's like, well, yeah, he's down, he's clearly down, and who's surprised? Nobody's surprised by that. So, and then, but we've also seen them hand the ball off 3 or 4 times and it not work. But
Right.
as you said, this has not been Bo Jackson's. He'll get them to that point and then not be given the opportunity to put it in. He's had a couple of opportunities, and maybe the fact that he fumbled one of them,
one fumble,
has
was
limited
like,
it.
all
But
right.
still, I mean, Julian slipped and did not get them in, turned the ball over on downs. They're still trying to do it with him.
It's a good point. They're both turnovers. All right, to the final trip. And to me, if you're going to kick a field goal, I'd have preferred the first one would have been the field goal time. But that is kind of that's a whatever. That's just a preference decision and an aggression decision. I do wonder if you make a different decision in a do or die, gotta have it game. I do wonder if that's a playoff game, if Ryan Day does make that same decision. But with 2 minutes left, the 3rd and 1 call, this one drove me really bonkers with the wide receivers off the field. Now you got your wide receivers off the field, you got your tight ends in, and they roll Julian to the right. Here you've got Bo as I think your primary option. If you can pick up a quick little first down on that 3rd and 1, everything's gravy. But it's Bennett Christian in the end zone here is where the ball ends up going. And Bennett Christian, of all your tight ends, this is the last one you want trying to get separation on a route and throwing into the end zone. He's caught 4 or 5 balls this year, and when he's wide open, he can catch the ball. But you got Will Kazmarek, who has got 3 receptions in the game. You've got Jelani, he's out there. You've got obviously Max Clare, and the ball going to Bennett Christian in a gotta have it moment with 2 minutes left is like, that's a bad personnel grouping. No doubt about it, man. That's just not the one you want.
Well, and it's almost designed and planned that there will be no defender on him, because if there's a defender near him, then that's a contested throw when he's the main target. So you're expecting him to just break free and get lost in the wash, and he's there for an easy throw. And Indiana's defense and their linebackers and their safeties have been too smart for that for most of the year that we've seen. So, yeah, again, if you're taking people off the field and making the defense happy about it, maybe don't take them off the field. And yet they also failed with those guys on the field. But, yeah, the one time one of their touchdowns was in 12 personnel. So, like, it is okay to just have 2 tight ends out there and have 2 receivers out there and let them make a play when Julian Sayin is scrambling because the first read isn't there or he's pressured. He scrambles out and can find Carnell Tate. This one, the play design, it either has the one player has to be free or else it's not going to work. And just, again, well, if it doesn't work, we've got 4th down. It's like, well, okay, but, how did that go? And then in terms of the time management on this drive, it starts with 10:45
Tony,
left.
oh my gosh, dude.
And I think I was sitting next to Doug Lesmerises. So I'm like, well, at least they've got 2 drives left in this game. And then they get out to about the 40, 45, and there's like 5 minutes to go, and I'm like, or they just make this the last drive of the game and punch it in, and it's this miraculous 10-minute willpower, like stake through the heart. And I think at some point around midfield, Ryan Day is thinking the same thing, like, well, we don't need to give this ball back. And then it turns from, okay, but it all has to be on this drive versus, well, we could speed it up. And if we don't get it, then we can stop them and get the ball back. But at some point he decided, yeah, it's going to be this one, whether we end it with a field goal or end it with a touchdown, we're going to just try to limit Indiana's next possession. And that they did the same thing at the end of the first half.
That I want to talk about both of these.
Yeah,
so
go ahead,
this is specifically, Tony, I think to what I've been kind of talking about all year. They have not picked up the pace at all year. They said they were going to do it at times. They said they were going to work it in. They never did. And the overarching point was we're going to save plays for the end of the year. Then that kind of became, well, actually, it's just kind of who we are now. This is, we huddle and it's just a habit and it's how we're comfortable. And that saving play thing goes out the window now. So now it's right before the half, and Ryan Day was asked about it, and he said he wanted to get it down to 2 minutes. They had the ball with 2:47, and they did. They ran it down. They 11-yard pickup. They run it down to the 2-minute warning. Okay, now you got the ball at the 36, and you're under 2 minutes. I'm with him. I get it. Okay, so now he's got it with 2 minutes. The following play on first down from their 36, they get 4 yards, 4-yard run, and then they let the play clock go all the way down on that play. There's no explanation for that other than we're giving up one of our 8 possessions here. You got 8 possessions, and you're just throwing in the towel on one where you've got it cooking. You just picked up 11 yards. You picked up 4 yards. I don't think they're capable of picking up the pace. Otherwise, why didn't you do it? Why haven't we seen these guys pick up the pace all year, ever? They've run 1 2-minute drill all year. And I think that old Ryan Day, the first 7 years at Ohio State, looks at that final 10 minutes, get the ball back 10 minutes. He's looking at this going, I'm going to go score, give them the ball back, stop, and I'm going to end with the ball, or I'm going to have an opportunity to score last. And this Ryan Day is like, all right, last possession, 10 minutes left. Here we go. I don't know where the philosophical change was, and I don't understand it, because he used to be, his offenses were so good when they wanted to hit it, man. Bing, bang, boom, bang. It was just beautiful. A thing of beauty. And I don't understand it.
Well, in his early days, he never had a defense that could hold a team to 13 points. So he always needed, there were a lot of shootouts, 52-49 against Maryland, for instance, in 2019 or whenever that was. But I think that's one of the things, but also that and the playoff thing has really impacted his mindset and wanting to limit the touches and those sorts of things and the contacts. And yet they had 22 plays in the first half. You can go ahead and find 50 plays in the second half to hit the 70 that is an okay number. But yeah, he was much more aggressive back in the day. I think mainly because he had to be, because you can't expect to win a game scoring 17 points. Now you can. He also, remember a few years ago, he said you need to score 40 points in the playoffs to win. Mm-hmm. And so that's the mindset you had to have. Now that's not the case anymore. You're going to see games won with 24 points. And I also wonder how much of this, and this is a broader thing, it speaks to Indiana in the playoffs and their ability to maybe stay there, is just how much NIL in the transfer portal has evened things out across the nation and allowed, this idea that just the fact that you can't go score 50 points anymore because, you for one, maybe you're not as talented as you used to be and other teams are more talented than they used to be. But also you're wanting to limit time, you're wanting to burn the clock, like all of these different things that have come into play, and clock rules, and just this idea that I don't need to lead the nation in scoring anymore, because also there's no beauty pageant to it anymore for an Ohio State. They know that if you're in the top 3 of your conference, Ohio State's going to make it. So this is not a 4-team playoff, so you don't have to win with points and style as well. So I think there's a number of reasons why Ryan Day has gone down in terms of how aggressive and yeah, I'm with you in terms of the 10:45. It's like, okay, this is go score, get the stop, and then either score again if need to, or just run the last 3 minutes of the game out and go home. So I don't know. That's a long answer to a lot of different aspects of why the things are different. But I also blame Matt Patricia as well. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Because the defense is really good.
This is a weapon, man. This is a weapon that you can have at your disposal. Doesn't need to be run all the time, but you can have it when it's there. And he's obviously a coach who knows how to get it done. It just seems like at some point, you're going to need it. And this was the point in a big game where you needed it, I think, before halftime to be able to execute that 2-minute drill. And they punted on it. And this was the first kind of crucial time when it was like, here it is. Go. Let's go. Let the clock run.
And that 1 2-minute drill that you're talking about, that was also just a field goal, right? They were setting up for a field goal the entire time. So they knew they only needed to get to like the 25 or whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of the field goal, you rely on the field goal. Obviously you've got this time now. And like I said, this to me, a lot of people comparing it to the Michigan game as far as game plan stuff. To me, after this game, all I could think about was the trip to Autzen last year. You go out to Autzen, you play a great game offensively, you find a bunch of warts defensively, and you got all this time to fix it. Now, the immediate game, well, they had a bye. Then Nebraska, that was a bad game, but followed that with Penn State, which was a great game. And from there on until the rivalry game, it's like things got much better. And they were able to use that game for a lot of good. And I think they can use this game for a ton of good as well. And I think it also kind of reboots. It reboots. You don't got to worry about the streak anymore. The streak's over. You're not going undefeated. And now it's just pissed off guys that want to go. And again, they're angry heading into the playoffs, which I kind of like. I like it that way. Didn't want to have to lose to have that happen, but it is what it is. Here you are. And I like the mentality that presents. But when we talk about the things that they're going to need to work on, things they're going to need to change, I don't know. I mean, they've lost 3 games and fielding missing short field goals has been a part of those, 2 of them. And it's like, I don't know how you can, it feels like he's got an issue with the pressure, right? I mean, it's gotta be.
Well, let me ask you this, because this may be a weird thing to say, but with this defense right now, if you relied upon fielding more, would they be better off? Because then there wouldn't necessarily be the pressure kick at the end. If you're kicking field goals more often, like during the game, and you score a touchdown and you've got 3 field goals throughout the course of the game, you're 4 scores rather than failing in the red zone 3 times, and you've got 16 points. You may not need that 4th or that 4th field goal. So it's just I agree, make your kicks. But it's just interesting to think like, well, maybe if you kicked more, you wouldn't miss the late one because there would be no pressure. And it's like, well, is that really how that's supposed to work? No, but hey, crazier things have happened. And somebody mentioned it in the chat here that with Ohio State's defense, you're not playing in shootouts anymore. So field goals are not a bad thing. You don't need touchdowns necessarily. If like I said earlier, how many teams nationally are going to be able to, left in the playoffs, are going to be able to score, more than 20-21 against Ohio State. And I think the ones that can are also the ones with the defenses that are bad enough to allow, 35 points to Ohio State, provided the offensive line holds up. But I think there are some teams where field goals are more valuable against some teams. Field goals are more valuable. And I think clearly this would have been one of them. Last year against Michigan would have been one of them. And maybe not so against Miami or Texas A&M, but we'll see.
Yeah. Were you surprised that they stayed at number 2? Did you expect them to drop to number 3 with the final rankings?
I kind of thought that Georgia, just being the SEC champ, they moved to 2. So I was a little bit surprised, but I don't know how you necessarily punish Ohio State for that loss. Given
what's your philosophy on that?
Well, it's convoluted. Why do you ask? Here's the thing with the committee. They don't want to punish a team that loses in the conference title game, except they're okay doing it with BYU and anybody else in the Big 12. They're not okay with doing it in the SEC or the Big 10. And I've said this on a couple of Buckeye Weeklies, I think, in the last couple of days, where this is the first time I've ever heard people saying, well, you can't leave the number 1 seed of the SEC championship game out of the playoffs.
Never heard that argument before. Yeah.
Never, ever, no matter how many losses they have. It's like, well, you can't possibly leave. Who has ever talked about the seeding in the SEC
Nobody.
championship game
Never
before?
come up. Never come up.
ever. So, but that's my fault for listening to like the SEC radio on Sirius XM in the mornings at times, just because I want to, I'm not awake enough. I want my blood start to boil, and then I can, it's a human defrost basically going on in the morning here.
Yeah, I've got like my stance on that has always been consistent. I don't think that you should be like, if you reward somebody with a 13th game that nobody else has to play, I feel like it's almost an exhibition off for that conference championship. And I think that should apply all the way around, or it doesn't all the way around. It's one or the other. Like, and I'm okay with either. My personal opinion is that it shouldn't, but I'm okay if it does, as long as it's applied to everybody evenly. It wouldn't bother me a bit.
Yeah, because my initial thought when they went to the 12 was, you can't punish somebody for making the conference championship game and then losing, and then say Ohio State loses and they get leapfrogged by a 10-2 Penn State. Like, how is that fair if Penn State didn't even make the conference championship game? So that was always my thought, where you can't knock somebody out that made it in favor of somebody who didn't.
Right.
And I think you're seeing with the whole Notre Dame thing, with people being upset about Alabama making it, I think you're looking at an easy fix to 16 next year. I'm just wondering how they figure out the automatic qualifiers. And no, I don't care that the 17th team is going to be upset. I never care about the last team that gets in, because everybody's agreed to this. I don't care about the 65th team back in the day. I don't care about even if they allow 16 and somebody's going to get left out, like the 15th team is going to get left out because of an automatic qualifier or whatever. Look, we all agreed to this. 15, 16 should be enough to get the best 15, 13, 14, 15 teams in there. And if you're the 15th best team, you probably weren't going to win it anyway. But I do enjoy
it's just about perfect that a couple teams that deserve it probably are left out. I think it makes for this great fight at the end. I love it.
Yeah. And Notre Dame certainly one that a lot of teams didn't want to face in the playoffs.
Hell no.
There's a lot of happy teams.
Yeah.
That they're not in it. So maybe that's the correct answer, where, hey, I guess that just means it's a pretty good selection overall.
Well, look at the fun we're dealing with. These guys, they pull out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. It's the talk of the country today. They're taking their ball and going home, and they're now retroactively pretending like it's a big screw you to ESPN. They don't want to give them the money to put it on TV. Nah, man. This was Notre Dame pouting. This was Notre Dame pouting.
Well, I also saw yeah.
They got a big
I saw somebody posted this on the message board. Buckeye held a message board about, is this also just a middle finger to ESPN? Because that bowl game would have been, like, ESPN touts the SEC, touts Alabama, gets Alabama into the playoffs, and now ESPN wants to air the Pop-Tarts Bowl with starring Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's like, no, we're not going to be a part of that. We don't want to help your program at this point, and we don't want to help your entity, even though, I mean, they are still part of the ACC, whether they wanted to say it or not. Like, they get paid by ESPN just like everybody else, just not as much because they're getting the NBC money. So I don't have a huge problem with them getting knocked out because they're an independent, because the ACC has done a ton for them. And the one time the ACC gets the benefit of the doubt over Notre Dame is crying foul.
It's true, man. It's true. And honestly, the committee made themselves look really silly the way they went about this. They really did. I mean, it was one thing when there was 5 teams separating them. When it got down to 2 teams and 3 teams, to wait till the final one. They got to be right next to each other. Well, we know you do it in pods of 3 and 4. We know you do that. Why are you pretending like it needs to be right next to each other? I don't get it.
Why do you think, is this why you think that the national CF college football pundits and reporters have been so against the committee this year, finally, as opposed to, like, they all seem to be against the committee at this point, and that's new to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Usually that is definitely new. The revolt here, I think, was it just seemed to me to be, hey, we got a partner here. It just seemed like so nonsensical to keep coming out, Hunter Yurachek, week after week, and trying to explain this when it just kept getting closer and closer. And then the penultimate week saying, well, it's easier to do it when they're when they're right next to each other. And I'm
Mm.
just like, what is this guy talking about, man? It seems so nonsensical, but you could see it coming. It was almost like you knew that
Mm.
if BYU lost, they were going to either put
Mm.
them back to back or they were going to drop Alabama right between them. So they didn't need to do that. And they end up doing what I think is the right thing. I think that in those two instances, those are two even Steven resumes, in my opinion. One's got a couple better wins, one's got a couple better losses, and they played. There you go. Even Steven. Miami gets it. But I think both of them belonged ahead of Alabama. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Does Miami get in if Virginia wins? Or was this an appeasement of the ACC?
I don't know. So part of me thinks that they really didn't care about the ACC. I mean, but I totally get the argument if some people do. Like, I really think there's a lot in there that's just like, they really don't care about that. But I know that everybody thinks that there's guys with ulterior motives in there. Maybe there is.
And I'm not trying. I was joking about the second hour, but if you're the ACC and the Big 12, how can you still be against automatic qualifiers?
Oh, Tony, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And this whole stuff of them signing onto the paper saying, admitting that we're less than the Big Ten and the SEC by only accepting 2. Come on, man. Everybody knows the deal here. Everybody knows the deal. Unless they think in the Big 12 that they're all of a sudden all going to become Texas Tech, that's where you're at. That's your lot in life, and that's where you're going to stay, because the Big Ten and the SEC continue to get wealthier and more powerful, and it's very clear to see what's coming. Sign on to your 2 and be happy with it. But now you got Petiti saying because they didn't accept it, fine, we'll go to 24. You can each have 4. And he's doing whatever he can to get support so he can get his 4 AQs. And to be honest, I love the AQ model. I love the 4-4-2-2-1-3. I thought it was perfect. And I wish they would have agreed to that or wanted that, and they could have muscled the SEC into that. But now it looks like we'll probably be at this 16, and Petiti will still be pushing his 24 for his AQs. That I just hate. I hate that for the regular season.
And the last thing for me, I guess, is we can all agree that the conference championship games are pointless, at least, right? Like, again, if Ohio State and Indiana, all they do is switch, and there's no point in playing this game. They should have been 1-2 anyway, and let somebody else play. Basically, is how I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Not trying to do any of that. I'm against the Big Ten, the conference championship games now. I want to see play-in games. I think that's more important. That's more entertaining. Not that this wasn't entertaining, but what did it accomplish?
To me, this was only entertaining in that the fact that it was just the 8th time we've ever seen a 1-2 matchup with Ohio State, and obviously the Indiana story. So this had some stuff. This had some juice to it, but it's once in a blue moon that this game's going to have some juice to it. Last year, Oregon versus Penn State had no juice to it. To me, it turned out to be a great game, but there was nothing that was exciting about it. And that was even with Oregon in their first year in the conference. And it had some stuff behind it, but it just wasn't exciting. I mean, if we can really restructure this to, and I was against this at first, Tony, with 1 and 2 playing, and then 3 playing 6 and 4 playing 5. I was against it because what you're doing there is you're putting 3 and 6. Those are different seasons, and you're putting them on the same footing when they walk in to play that game. But now that we're seeing just how drastically different everybody's schedule is, it's like you can be 6 and be better than the 3 seed. You just played a much more difficult schedule. So, I like it. I like the whole system of it. It would be a whole exciting weekend, and it's just it's a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun. Everybody would earn their spot, and I would really enjoy it.
Yeah, and most importantly, you replace the TV inventory if you don't do if you're getting rid of the conference championship game, you can at least have 2 other games that are decided or
Right.
that decide who's in the playoffs for each conference. I think there's some win-win. I was also talking with somebody recently about how why not let the first 3 teams in the Big Ten in, and then 4 plays 5. That way you're not going too deep into, like,
That works too.
You're avoiding Iowa. Basically,
Right.
is the whole premise there. You don't want 7 and 5 Iowa. So okay, 3 get in, and then it's 4 versus 5.
Tone, what did you think of the Matt Campbell hire?
Could have done it a long time ago and save a recruiting class, or not.
Right. Well,
So,
apparently they got a hold of the wrong agent. They claim they tried to get a hold of him first, but they had the wrong agent. Unbelievable,
wow.
man. But yeah, I like the hire. I think it's really good for them. I think he fits in perfect, and I think he's going to do real well there. But what did you think of Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State and the $400 million donation they just got?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good gig. Now, I've always had an issue with Pat Fitzgerald in terms of everybody loves him, except like winning 2 games is acceptable every other year. It's like, I've always had issues with the praise that he got, but I do think he is at a good place, and now the investment is there, and he's going to take the Michigan rivalry very seriously. That's I think my number 2 favorite rivalry in college football. Now that Michigan and Notre Dame no longer play, I love that rivalry, and I hope they can get it back. I think it's a very good hire for them. In terms of, I do like the Matt Campbell thing as well. I'm interested to see what he can do with recruiting, because he never really had that opportunity at Iowa State.
No, he didn't, and he's a hell of a talent evaluator. And now he can go out and get those guys like this and not get them stolen. Like he had Milan Paris out of Walsh right down the street. He had him, discovered him, and he was his only big offer, the first one. And now, well, he's at Miami, and he loses a ton of guys like that every year when those guys get found. And the more prevalent, the more broad the recruiting kind of circuit goes, the harder and harder that becomes to hide those guys. And he was doing great with it, but I think it's a great move for him. Do you think that that the Hartline thing is a big distraction? I don't know what people expect him to do. He just got hired, but he's getting like trash for being tone deaf, for accepting his job, and for USF promoting their new head coach. I don't know what he's supposed to do here. This is when it happens.
He's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And if people, it's okay if people are upset by it. Tone deaf, like, should he arrive to his introductory press conference in a black veil and covering his face? Like, I'm sorry, I'm here. Like, just trying to be real low key about it. You can't. You've got to be upbeat about it. And yeah, I'm sure he's smarting, but you put on a good face and you go do with that. Is it going to be a distraction? Only if you make it a distraction. We've seen Tom Herman do this. We've seen other coaches do this, where you're living 2 lives. But I think sometimes people think that if you're not doing this 24 hours a day, then you're doing something wrong. Like, you'll see, you used to see pictures of like players out and about, and there'd be comments like, why aren't you at school? Like, why aren't you at the Woody? And it's like, there are hours where I can be out in the sun or out
Anywhere
under the
I want.
stars. Right. And people think that, no, you're a football player. You football. And so, like, how many hours a day are you supposed to be coordinating an offense? I mean,
Yeah, man.
do you understand paralysis by analysis as well? So, they're going to have to figure out exactly how to do it and what works best for everybody. And, there'll be days where Brian comes in and it's like, what did we learn today? Or what do we do today? And then you catch him up to speed. But you figure by that, 8 or 9, 10 days before the game, everybody's going to be pretty much locked in on what needs to happen and who's doing what.
It seems pretty clear that Ryan wants his help throughout this transition. That's the way it seemed to me.
Why would you want fewer coaches?
Yeah, right. Especially a guy that you can trust. And no, look, it's true that, like, when we look at Tom, what did Herman have to do? He had to assemble a staff. Hartline he's got 5 days to convince all the guys to stay, right? And I'm sure plenty of them want to go with Alex Golesh to Auburn. He's got to assemble a staff. Then he's got to evaluate portal. Then he's got to execute portal, all throughout this period where he's going to be with Ohio State. And it's going to be a boatload of work. But Ryan knows that. And if he wants him to still be involved, well, he knows what the hell he wants. So I don't know why anybody's got an issue.
Plus, it just means more Ryan Day involved in the offense. And when has that ever been a bad thing? Other than, of course, people want to talk about the tight ends and things like that. But Ryan Day is the best thing that has ever happened to Ohio State offense. So having him more involved, I don't think is a bad thing.
For sure. All right, brother. Fantastic talk as usual, Tone. I appreciate you, buddy. I will let you go on that. Have a fantastic evening, my friend.
Talk to you later.
And our Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle, my man's. Always a good time talking with Tony. And he's usually the talk me off a ledge when I'm amped up. I've not been amped up in a while, man. It's been a year since we lost a game. All in all, though, guys, I feel when we look at moving forward, I still feel confident that this team is the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. I mean, like they are the odds-on favorite. Like I still feel like they're going to win the national championship. That's what I feel like. I actually love the draw. I love that it's hard. You get the winner of Texas A&M and Miami, and from there, most likely Georgia. I've been wanting that game against Georgia for a couple years now. I wanted that rematch, and it is finally lined up so that it might actually happen, and they look great. To me, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State, the three best. They have looked sensational the last couple of games, and they looked so fast, hitting so hard. Gunner's gotten better and better. That's going to be a banging game if we get to that game. And then, of course, the opportunity to either rematch Oregon or Indiana in the national championship. A rematch of the Rose Bowl last year or Indiana in the Big Ten championship this year. And this season is just going to be so much fun. Richie says, I hope your wife is doing better. She is home. She is smiling in a piggy pile with her dogs upstairs. Things are great, buddy. Things are fantastic. And while we don't have full answers yet as to what exactly is going on, because we got to go meet with the big boss pacemaker man, we were able to rule out a lot of the dangerous stuff. So that's great news. That is great news. But thank you for asking, buddy. Joe thinks the Brian Hartline departure played a part in this loss. And I understand if anybody feels that way. You know, it's obvious that it is when you see a guy who coaches for your team and you know he's spending a week down in South Florida and he's out there doing a press conference the day after, you take one on the chin, it doesn't feel good. I get it. But there's no way around it. It's the only thing he can do. He took a job. This is when the job was hiring. This is when all these jobs are hiring. And this is the way the calendar works. There's nothing else you can do. If you want to take another job, this is when it happens. And of course, nobody faults him for taking that job. He wants to further his career and be a head coach. And people are bashing him. And it's like, this is also a guy who may swing back around and be the head man at Ohio State someday. He's a guy who's given us the best run an assistant coach has ever given us, honestly. And I think he deserves that respect from everybody as he tries to move on to his new venture. But, as far as how much it played a factor in this game, we'll never know. But we do know that, like my guy here says, if he's getting paid by Ohio State, he should be all in with Ohio State. Like, I get it. But at the same time, the boss man knows exactly what's going down, and he is not telling him, stay down there. I got this, right? We've seen people do that in the past. Nick Saban did it to Lane Kiffin when he had taken another job. No thanks. I got this. Ryan's not doing that. He wants him with him. So if he wants him with him, then he's helping him clearly, right? Woody says, pretty simple. Shabola never touches the field. Tate and Smith never leave it. Oh, man. I love it. Scott says, does Corville get a cornerback acne to kick? Does Corville get a cornerback acne to kick? I don't get it, but I would like to see Corville kick. Absolutely. Tom says Lorenzo definitely hurt his NFL chances by getting burnt deep this point in the season. Lorenzo got picked on a little bit. And we know that Lorenzo is, he has his limitations in coverage, and most nickels do. He's not the when a team has a third wide receiver, that's talented, Lorenzo's going to get picked on. He is for sure. Rome, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Rome says it's being overlooked that the defense didn't force 1 3-and-out, which could have had Days slow it down at the end. Defense balled out, but that had to play into it some, correct? Yeah. It's also the other way around as well. No 3-and-outs for the Ohio State offense. I actually thought that stat was one of the crazier ones of the day. When you look at a 10-13 game, not a single 3-and-out in the game, it's pretty wild. But no, they did not. They were not able to force one. MCU Drew, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. Historic run begins in 3 weeks. Love the attitude, man. I'm feeling amped up. Honestly, it's like I'll be salty for probably the rest of the day, maybe through tomorrow, and then it's like, all right, I'm over it. You lost the Big Ten championship, which I've said before, of the 3 goals means like it's not even very, very close to the game for me. There's 3 major goals, right? The game, the Big Ten championship, the national championship. But to me, it's the national championship, the game, and then the Big Ten championship somewhere down here. I've got memorabilia all around me. There's not a single thing in here that says Ohio State Big Ten champions. Not a single one. It's just, I don't know. It's an afterthought. It's an afterthought to me. I wanted to win because I wanted to beat Indiana. That's what I wanted to do. Indiana's been winning a long time. Football just decided to join the party last year. That's fair. Hey, welcome home, Mrs. Chuck. There's our girl. All these talking heads talking about a rematch. Better stop putting the cart in front of the horse. Last week, everyone was talking dynasty and the most complete team, and look what happened. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Like, I still think it is the most complete team, and it still very well could be a dynasty. Do you think because Ohio State lost a coin flip game that any of that's changed? It hasn't. The only thing that changed, in my opinion, is Indiana's better than I thought they were. That's it. Ohio State's still that dude. No doubt about it in my mind. There we go. Respect and prepare for opponents. That's the key. Take everyone seriously. No doubt. I agree with you. More of a distraction for the fans than the team. And he's talking about the Hartline thing. Roger says OSU doesn't lose much, but when you do, you guys have all the excuses to cover the loss. Dude, every fan base makes excuses when their team loses. That's not like OSU doesn't own the excuses when your team loses. But if you want to see a lack of excuses, you can go watch my show from earlier. There's none. There is no, we lost this game. They didn't beat us. Look, they beat Ohio State straight up, outcoached them and beat them. End of story. I think that is showing your opponent respect, and I think it's disrespectful to say, well, we lost, but we beat ourselves. I can't stand it. I can't stand it when Ohio State beats somebody and they say that. And I don't like it when an Ohio State player gets on the mic like Will Howard did last year and said it. Said it about the Oregon game. We beat ourselves. I just don't like it. Give your opponent the respect. They beat you. That's it. Anyways. All right, guys. We are an hour and 18 minutes. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me. A big show tonight. And we will be back, of course, on Wednesday. I've got the second part of my recap coming out tomorrow morning. I had to break it up into 2 parts because I was in and out of the hospital with the missus. And second part, about an hour long tomorrow morning. So I do appreciate you guys for joining us as always. And we will talk to you soon. Buck a Huddle out.